Right now, let me take you to the Alisa Hotel, where there's an event by CAT International on the private sector role and participation in the African Free Trade Agreement.
Because if you don't do that, it will be difficult for the SMEs to take advantage of this after. So this morning, the discussion that we are come to have this morning, let's all come together and then discuss it for us to understand it, the opportunities in there, and how the SMEs can take advantage. I think it will be good that, like, especially the private sector. When you go to a country like Japan, you can't do it without the academia. But Ghana here, normally we don't involve them so much. So if you can, because if you want to improve upon the product, our services, they can support us very well. So I think the public-private partnership, we can add academia to help us to improve our products and our services. Thank you very much.
One of the key things that we will need as a nation to make sure that all he has said comes to pass is to have a national strategy, and we do have one. One of the things in the strategy is trade facilitation, trade policy infrastructure, productive capacity, trade information, market integration, and finance. So it will be one of the things I will ask during the panel discussion. What does all of this mean? But somebody is coming to help us put things in proper perspective when it comes to policy. And we will take a 10 minutes remarks from Honorable Dr. Ato Pamford, who is the Senior Advisor, Enterprise Support Specialist and Technical Audit at the National AfCFTA Coordination Office. Please, let's put our hands together for him.
Thank you. Good morning. Distinguished, senior and should I say, if we have the private sector here, the entrepreneurs and then policy makers and etc. But I want to take this opportunity to say a big thank you to CAT International and then our great partner, the GIZ, and other institutions, media, etc., to bring this, dialogue to place today. I believe there's an opportunity for us to really think deep and then look at the way forward for our SMEs. Indeed, the Minister of Trade and Industry, under the leadership of the Minister, Honorable Alain Kojo-Chirmatin, has over the past 24 years led the ministry of the Chief Director, that's Patrick Nimo, with the assent of the President, Nana Danko Akufo-Addo, established the AfTAC NCU, that's the National Coordinating Office. And then it was strategically established with a mandate of facilitating the export trade activity under the AfTAC. And then if we consider the backbone of our economy, we all believe that it's the SMEs that perform major activity in terms of our production and then trade. Here we are faced with a whole big market of the 1.3 billion, market size. And then the SMEs start wondering, how do we tap onto this huge market? Looking at my background from even before I became a legislator for this country, I was the Vice President of Association of Ghana Industries, responsible for the SMEs. And I've run factories and then been an industrialist myself, so we understand the challenges of the SMEs when it comes to market access. We believe that government position is critical in stimulating this whole activity onto the market. And so the establishment of the NCO, we have a national coordinator here, my big and then senior brother, Honorable Dr. Farid. Can you give us a wave, Doc? Yeah. He's been carefully looking at how to consolidate all the efforts of government to ensure that the vision and the mission for the establishment of the NCO is accomplished. Ladies and gentlemen, I wouldn't take much of your time, but to give you a little overview of the status quo, where we are now in terms of AfCFTA. I joined AfCFTA through the Ministry of Trade. And then the reason why I was considered to come and assist Dr. Farid and the team there was that, whilst in Parliament, I was also the Vice Chair for Trade, Industry and Tourism Select Committee of Parliament, of the 7th Parliament. And then we understand some of these things very well because most of the issues came to us, and then we had to look at it, have an oversight of the ministry to understand the key things to support our local industries. Now, my mandate, is that this nation has to drive the SMEs that we are all here concerned today to ensure that they tap onto this market. We've all heard about the 1B, 1F, etc. When we produce, the biggest thing that drives industry is all about market. And then we've had free trade markets like the AGOA, we've had markets like the EPA, the Ghana-UK, IPA, etc. But the issue is that after signing these beautiful and wonderful agreements, the issue here that we are faced that are our SMEs able to access and take opportunities of these great, laudable, agreements? So, government, in its wisdom, led by the minister, Honorable Alaji, believed that we needed to stimulate it. And by stimulating it, we need to have, direct interventions and prescriptions to support our SMEs. The recent budget statement indicated that, look, NCO is, and then the ministry is going to support about 180, enterprises to tap onto this AfCFTA, But then when you go into these enterprises, and that you find real challenges that becomes bottlenecks for them to be able to access onto most of these things. And my role is to, under my leadership of Dr. Farid, I am assigned to go into these SMEs or enterprises to audit or assess them, to look at their challenges, and then prescribe some of the recommended intervention for the ministry to be able to provide the requisite, interventions for these, companies. Ladies and gentlemen, we are just thinking whether this AfCFTA has started or not. But AfCFTA has really started. AfCFTA has started. And then the question is that, how are our SMEs tapping onto it? Just the 7th October, and then I'm happy to have my friend and then good friend, Mr. Interior and co, and then some of the, I see a lot of good friends, old friends and new faces over here. That on the 7th, the guided trade, and then the guided trade, its essence is to stimulate the activity of the international trade within Africa. The thing is that, at times when these things happen, people wonder, or enterprises or businesses wonder, how do we start even? But by this, Ghana took the initiative together with some of the countries, and then let me say, some of the countries like Kenya, Cameroon, Egypt, Ghana itself, and then others have decided to start it up to enable them test the custom efficiencies of their documentations and etc., logistics issues and everything, to ensure that the framework for this whole trade is really robust to carry up the whole activity. And then the reason why I'm saying that, it started is that on the 7th, the initial official trade opening was launched by the Honorable Minister. And then we saw Kida Ceramics exporting almost about 2.9 tons of ceramic tiles made in Ghana from my constituency, Shama constituency in the Western region, to Cameroon. I think we have done something. Can we give them, and then this is by the efforts that we really want to push and make the intervention. But let me say this. Competition is at the play here. No matter what we do for the duty-free, quota-free whole agenda that we are pushing our markets through, ladies and gentlemen, we also have some of the African countries like Kenya exporting tea to Ghana. We have also Egypt exporting poultry or beef, that sort of thing, to Ghana. And let me say, this has happened. And not that it's going to happen, has happened. Benso oil palm plantation from the Western region, that's BOP, Limited, is also preparing to export palm kernel oil to Kenya. So the real action has been kicked off by the significance that we did on the 7th. And ladies and gentlemen, I think we need to find how best we can stimulate our SMEs more to be able to take this advantage of this huge market size. I believe that this conversation is rightly positioned, and then I also want to, say kudos to GIZ for sponsoring such a wonderful program for us to have this kind of dialogue. In fact, in the assessment of our companies, or our entities here in Ghana, at NCO, we have categorized them into 3 categories. We have companies that are already exporting to Africa. Now, we already have companies exporting to some of the ECOWAS region and the etc. But then we want to look at the broader Africa. And then broader Africa happens under the AfCFTA. And so that's one category of companies. And then with category 2, we have companies exporting but to other destinations like Europe, USA, and etc., who are also doing business in Africa. They are also exporting. And then we have the category 3, companies in production for local market who are not exporters but also have the potential to diversify and produce for export onto the African continental market. And then whilst we look at all this, we at the NCO are trying to support them and then put up the right interventions through the Ministry of Trade to ensure that we get things moving on for them onto the market. Ladies and gentlemen, we are running a project on the phases. Phase 1, we had the Ministry of Trade engaging a consultant to look into such enterprises or entities who are ready to have the potential to do the export. Almost over 1,000 companies were looked at. But then, I'm here to inform this meeting that at the phase 2 of it, we at the NCO looked at it, and then we've worked with almost about 235 enterprises. I mean, Ghanaian enterprises, of which I should say almost about 95% of the companies that I've audited or I have assessed are SMEs. So SMEs have not been left behind, ladies and gentlemen. And then that is what gladdens my heart to say that, yes, Mother Ghana is trying to do something for our SMEs. We have the next phase to also look at additional 100, enterprises to look at them, assess them, and then look at the right interventions to give to them. So government, and then let's say all of us are not oblivious of what we really want to do for them. But every enterprise and the kind of product that they produce have its peculiar or distinct, challenges that they face. And so by having this individual one-on-one deep diving assessment of what their challenges are, that is when we can be able to prescribe the right interventions for them. And that is what we are doing. When we talk about the market, what is happening around us, every country with productivity, that is what can help us to be able to ensure that our economy is stable, and then our forex is also stable. Going forward, under the leadership of Dr. Farid and then the minister, and then my good self as team that we are there, we have a program to look at these SMEs, even come 2023. So I want to use this opportunity to announce some of them as we even prepare, because it's in our plan. One, we want to organize forums for SMEs, women and youth entrepreneurs, to educate them, like today, what we are here on our feet trying to do. We'll also be supporting the enterprise, assessment. And then, let me say, for what we've done about the 235 that I made mention of, we are also trying to consider additional 100. So if we have SMEs here, we should look at them that, look, we are coming for you to educate and then also to try and then give you the kind of support that you need. We also going to be happening to have a B2B. We are trying to look at about 75 companies to take them to Kenya, Rwanda, Nigeria, Egypt, and then Cameroon. By this, we are going to hold their hands and make sure that we help them enter the market. So we are not just, creating the environment and leaving them, but we are really going to be supporting them to hold their hands and then enter into the market and help them to be able to get a market that they require. We'll also be doing some sensitization, programs. We'll be considering, the northern sector, the southern sector, the western sector, and then the eastern sector for SMEs. I think, was it some few weeks ago or a week ago, we had engagement with all the chief directors of all the ministries, and then just to let them also understand what and how we should be able to be supporting the SMEs. My dear sister, Odelia was trying to give us some level statistics about how, but let me say this, that, market or the trade with African countries, just like she said, South Africa is being the biggest. But you know what? Trading with South Africa, we are the receiving end. If you go to our malls and etc., you see most of the products, coming from South Africa there. And then how do we change the paradigm? And then the issue is that we need to make an intervention for our SMEs. But then, ladies and gentlemen, to make my long story short, just this August 2020, the minister and our office, together with the Ministry of Trade, launched the AfCFTA National Policy Framework and the work plan. It is very important for us to have copies of this to look at all the activities within it, that will help. And then let me say this, that we're still in the whole policy framework. We still have the 10-pillar intervention of the industrialization agenda for Ghana. And then the pillar 5, that is, I just don't want to bore you with all the other sort of thing, but with the pillar 5, it specifically mentions the SMEs. Ladies and gentlemen, so let us draw our SMEs' attention onto this, which indicates that this government's, industrialization agenda is to develop the SMEs, which form the backbone of the whole production and the needs to support them grow and fully participate in the industrial value chain. This will help create more jobs and boost production for both local consumption and export. And by this, at times we look at the bottlenecks in even establishing some of these enterprises or the challenges that is there. And then on the same 10 pillars, we have the BRI, which also try to deal with other bureaucratic, regulatory, and etc. issues to make sure that we ease the platform for doing business in Ghana quite easy. So we have gone through all these things, and then I believe that when we sit, our senior friend, Dr. Farid, will add some more to that flesh as he represents the minister here. And then, let me say that trade with Africa, Ghana with Africa, is valued almost about 3.9 billion, as information stated by the 2019 report. And this represents about 15% of Ghana's global trade, notwithstanding the country experienced a positive balance trade of 2 billion in 2019. And I was in Parliament on my feet defending this. And then from a report that we had from GIPA, we realized that even the non-traditional exports are also driving out. Recently we saw how yam was performing, and then the news was all over. My sister, kudos. We all team together to ensure that we support the private sector. But Ghana's top 5 trading partners in Africa, just like we did mention, South Africa is leading. We have Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso's contribution, is almost about 0.38 billion, which forms about that is about 10% of our trade with Africa. When I look at all these, apart from South Africa, we have most of them being within the ECOWAS region and etc. But the question here today that we have to answer is that, what if we open and support our SMEs to access the bigger 54 countries market? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Doctor. So I usually would like to summarize and pick my key takeouts. The fact that we have categorized the industries that will participate in this trade and looked at who is already doing something in Africa that needs support to go to the other African countries. And then companies that are exporting already to other countries other than countries within Africa that have the capacity or the capability of doing that across the continent. And then potentially companies who have the ability to do it in Ghana probably haven't thought of going outside the shores of the country. And I'm sure that this is where the SME space will be sitting heavily. Then the fact that there are 2 phases of operations that they have worked on, looked at 1,000 companies, scaled it down to 235 enterprises that they are looking at. 75 of them will be taking out of the country to look at some other markets and quickly come and export. When I was speaking with the lady from GEPA, Joanna, we also talked about 17 products that have also been identified that we should be pushing as a country. So it looks like we're really on course with various activities. But the UN designed the competitive grid some years back, and we have been looking at Ghana's capabilities, competitiveness, through the improving the framework conditions for the private sector, and which was put together by CAT International. They will be doing a presentation for us pretty soon. One of the key things that they looked at was capacity to compete, that is in cost, in quality and quantity. One of the issues that have come up is the fact that Our international certifications when it comes to the SME space is a big issue. Then our ability or capacity to connect in relation to ICT. And then finally, the capacity to change. That's if there's any disruption and shocks, how will the SME sector be getting ready to change? And so without much ado, I'd like to invite Isaac Yawabeng, who is the head of research at CAT International, to do a quick presentation, 10 minutes, and then we will go into our panel discussion. Please, a round of applause.
Thank you very much, Odelia. Like you said, I'm not going to take much time because my time has already been spent a lot. You all agree with me that SMEs are the main drivers of our economy when it comes to production, export, and what have you. In fact, currently, they are 90% of our enterprises in Ghana. The question one will ask himself or herself is, would they be able to compete under the AfCFTA? This question can best be answered by the research that was conducted. So, straight for Steve, we'll move on to the research. Go. All right, so go. The objectives of the research was to conduct a nationwide assessment about the level of competitiveness and growth readiness of Ghanaian SMEs to participate in the AfCFTA, and also to come out with diagnostic report which will help to develop practical steps in addressing those gaps and challenges, and to advocate for improving the business framework conditions for SMEs. So these are the specific objectives. Steve, move on. How did we go about our research work? We undertook a desk research. There was a quantitative bit and then a qualitative bit, focus group discussion, and then we sent questionnaires, and then the desk review. In all, we organized 3 focus group discussions in Accra, Kumasi, and Takoradi, and the data was collected on the following sectors: agriculture, building and construction, manufacturing, retail and wholesale, service and transportation sector. And out of the sample of 1,028 firms, 494 were successfully obtained from Accra, 266 were obtained from Kumasi, and 268 from Takoradi. Now, in order to assess the competitiveness of SMEs, thanks to ITC, they already have a framework that they developed, which has been utilized by many countries to assess the level of competitiveness of SMEs. The first one looks at the firm level capability. So this refers to the capability within the firm. How are they utilizing their own capabilities to be competitive? You come to the immediate business environment level. This resides outside the firm. It is found within their micro environment, like you can talk of access to electricity, finance, and etc. Then you come to the national environment level. This has to do with the policy level. How is the government improving upon the policies available or implementing the policies available to ensure that SMEs stand competitive? So the firm level competitive capability, we look at the access to international quality certification, having and using a business bank account, the firm capacity utilization, are they able to utilize their own capacity? Then the experience of top managers, usage of email and business website, auditing financial statement, and I mean, you have the book before you, so you can go through. All these 3, if you talk about the firm level capability, the immediate business environment, and the national environment, they will help the firm to be able to compete, connect, or change. So for example, if a firm is able to use website or email to communicate to people or to customers, it helps them to connect with their customers. So looking at it, the firm level capability, the findings show that 88% of Ghanaian SMEs do not have any form of international certification. I mean, per the data collected. Also, only 22% have a quality certification from a relevant domestic regulatory authority, while the remaining 78% have none. The survey results indicate that 70% of Ghanaian SMEs operate bank accounts for their respective business. At least this is good news. When you come to the capacity to connect, at the firm level, 39% of SMEs mentioned they use emails to communicate with their customers and suppliers. Only 29% own and use a website to enhance their daily operations. 63% indicated they use some form of technology, like mobile phone with social media platforms, to enhance their productivity. Now, their ability to change. The results show that 42% prepare annually audited financial account, while 58% do not. So if you are not able to prepare your audited account, how do you expect the bank to give you a loan? 59% of SMEs organize training programs for staffs, whereas 41% do not. It is a significant figure. Things are changing, so if you don't organize program for your staff, how would they be able to catch up with the changes of the world? Then you come to the at the media business level. We look at access to electricity, access to a skilled workforce, the vicinity of a relevant cluster of economic activities, access to finance, access to business licenses, etc. Now the findings, Steve. The survey results show that just about 90% of SMEs have a good or excellent capabilities in relation to accessibility of trade information. So most of them export based on hearsays or upon recommendation from somebody that, oh, you can export your goods to Togo. But they do not have the real information to export. Also, about 30% of the SMEs have easy access to trade-related infrastructure. And then only 25% indicated they have a good or excellent dealings with governmental agencies on documentation, registration, licensing, and regulatory issues. Move on. With regards to the ability to connect under the immediate business environment, the results indicated that 42% of sample firms agreed to the use of modern marketing tools. Modern marketing tools. 39% claim that the suppliers in their respective fields are either of high quality or extremely high quality, and about 10% affirm that there's an extensive collaboration between their industry and the university. So the ability to use the research, R&D, the research that is generated by the academia to be able to improve upon whatever they are doing. Now we come to the national environment. 43% of the respondents are of the view that access to finance is a severe or very severe obstacle to the current operations of their respective establishment. Access to finance. I think this is already something that everybody knows. If you go to any SME and ask, what are your challenges? They will tell you finance, 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 finance. In fact, you will say that this is something that everybody knows. But here is the case. This is what they are telling us, that they have challenges to finance. So how are we going to address it to help them to be able to compete under the AfCFTA? Relatedly, 47% claim there is difficulty in accessing business licenses and permits regarding current operations of their respective establishment. Okay, we go. Now, the capacity of natural environment to change, 76% of them indicated there are no capabilities, bad capabilities or average capabilities in obtaining required funding for the expansion of their businesses from sources like private investors, crowdfunding, among others. How are they able to access resources? So generally, these are the findings. There's lack of domestic quality certification, lack of internationally recognized quality certification, producing below maximum capacity, lack of differentiated or unique products, insufficient investment in production, finishing, and packaging of products to meet international standards. Finishing and packaging, it is very, very important. You can do whatever you want to do, but if your finishing and packaging is not good, there's no way they can be able to compete. They mentioned poor financial record keeping. It came out of the research, poor financial management practices. Some of these findings go to the SMEs themselves, like the poor financial record keeping, poor financial management practices, and weak systems of upgrading and training human capital, limited access to trade infrastructure, and general delays in clearing goods from the point of entry. We also look at the export capabilities of the SMEs. Under that, we look at their production capability. Do they produce in volumes to supply even the Ghanaian market, let alone exporting to other markets? We looked at the export marketing skills. How many of the SMEs do have export marketing skills? You need to have a special skill, go through training. It is not a matter of I have produced, I have sold some in Ghana, and maybe I think I have surplus, let me look at elsewhere and export. You will need to prepare, have your plans to be able to export to other markets. Then managerial and financial readiness. How many of the SMEs have the managerial and financial readiness? The results show that 20% indicated the establishment have the production capacity to export. 23% have some form of export marketing skills or expertise. And 37% have the managerial and financial readiness for export business. The figures are not that encouraging. So whatever goes to the government is taking note of, and whatever goes to the firm themselves, you should also take note of them. Now, what are the barriers to exporting? We had high export tax, border delay, extortion by custom officials, high transportation costs, bad roads, cumbersome documentation process, demand for licenses, and registration certificate. Another issue that we looked at is the innovative capacity. How are the firms able to innovate? Mind you, under the AfCFTA, you are not going to sell the same product that you are selling. You need to up your game, improve upon whatever you are doing, add value to whatever you are doing. So we looked at how innovative are the firms. Under that, we looked at introduction of new or significantly improved production process or methods. Introduction of new or significantly improved products, goods or services, and investment in a new technology. That we look at it in a 3-year time frame. Only 44% have invested in any form of new technology to improve their production process. And 52% have introduced into the market new or improved products. And 44% have introduced improve production process. Now, the type of innovation that the firms have undertaken: 8% invested in research and development, and 7% have invested in product design, and the remaining 85% in machinery and plants. The next thing we looked at is operational risk, economic risk, financial risk, and market risk. Under operational risk, about 50% of them consider the incomplete use of productive capacities as a severe or very severe operational risk. And most of these firms, 53%, mention low level of innovation as a severe or very severe operational risk. 52% consider obsolete production facilities as a severe bottleneck to their daily operations. Under economic risk, 78% of the firm indicated that increases in taxes by the government create a major hindrance to their operational activities. And 67% of the firms are more hindered by the high cost of borrowing or lending interest rate, especially in the current situation. 74% consider frequent increases in fuel prices and increase in utility charges as a severe or very severe obstacle. Now, the market risk: 58% of Ghanaian SMEs consider the inability to compete in the market as a severe or very severe obstacle, and 77% consider the possibility of loss of customers as a major threat to their operations. And 63% consider the unreliable supply by the regular suppliers as a severe or very severe obstacle to their current operations. Now, conclusion. These are the main conclusion and findings. The Ghanaian national environment or macro economy is weakly conducive to the survival of most SMEs, and this makes firms unable to compete favorably. The macro environment. You talk about inflation, etc. There's also a general low capacity at the media business environment level to compete, connect, and change. And most of firms have not made sufficient investment in the production, finishing, and packaging of their products to meet international standards. A large number of sampled Ghanaian SMEs have no domestic quality certification for export and no internationally recognized quality certification. There's also a general low capacity at the immediate business environment level to compete, connect, and change. And generally, and more importantly, the knowledge level among Ghanaian SMEs about the existence of AfCFTA is very low. Thank you.
To all of these issues coming up pretty soon. One of the key things is issues relating to certification is a big challenge. Issues relating to innovation is one other big thing that we need to take a look at. And once we are able to deal with some of these things, then of course the information. If several of these MSMEs do not have the knowledge or the information as to what to do, then how do they even participate in the first place? And so these are some of the things that we will be taking a look at. And I'm very much interested in R&D, research and development. If just 8% of these people have been able to put their resources into R&D, then that is a big challenge. And of course, even looking at it from the national perspective, how much of our national budget is set aside for issues relating to R&D. And so I'm sure it's generally a national challenge that we would need to be looking at as well. So I think the stage is set for us to have our discussion, and we are all ready to do exactly that. To help with today's discussion, I'm sure a majority of them have had the opportunity to speak, and some of them will not need a reintroduction. I'd like to call upon Honorable Dr. Ato Pamford, who is a senior advisor at the National AfCFTA Coordinating Office. He has over 25 years of experience in the private and public sector in issues relating to industrialization. With a big round of applause, let us invite Honorable Dr. Ato Pamford. Also on the panel is Charles Arthur Intri, Head of Exports, the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He also has over 10 years experience in trade facilitation and exports promotion. I'm very much interested in the number of years of experience you have. Then it helps us to do a proper discussion. Nelly Joanna Spio Abedu. She's the Principal Export Development Officer, the Ghana Export Promotion Authority. And she has over 15 years experience as a trade promotion officer and has championed consistent product development and enhanced value of exhibitions. Please, let's keep clapping for her. She's a bit shy, so the more you clap, then you empower her to sit down very nicely. I'm going to mention his name. I hope I do not butcher it. Neblan Wujanji. So he's the Director of Food and Agriculture at the AfCFTA, focal person. He's the focal person at the Ghana Chamber of Agribusiness. Please welcome him. I'm sure when he comes, he will pronounce his name very well. He did it in the morning, but then, of course, the final person, but not the least in the discussion, whose contribution is very important as well. He is Wisdom Adongo, who's the Senior Project Officer, Private Federation Enterprise. So Wisdom is the Senior Project Officer there, and he also has 12 years work experience in MSME business diagnostics. Ladies and gentlemen, these men and women are overqualified for today's discussion. I'd like to take it from positioning the whole conversation from the national perspective. And so, Honorable Doctor, if you can just share with us issues relating to what's in the strategy as a whole, then we can place this into a proper perspective when having the discussion.
Thank you very much. I will try as much as possible to deal with some of these issues in relation to the presentation made by CATS International on the research findings and the results. If we look at the challenges, and I mean challenges, towards the enterprises in terms of how to export, then I would say more of the issues or the findings that, CAS International Consultants came out with are a reflection on what is actually on the ground. And that is the reason why government and then the Ministry of Trade and Industry, NNCU, takes it very important. And then for us, it is imperative to know that with all these challenges that has been chronicled out, we need to find the prescriptions and interventions for them. We've also considered, as the National Coordinating Office, some of other research findings. And then with industry in Ghana, one of the most popular research that normally comes out is from the AGI, that is a business barometer, that we all look at, And then one common thing that comes out is the access to credit or finance. And then for even us at the NCO, we are not looking at only the access to credit, but timely access to credit and the cost of credit. In fact, these are the two key things when we talk about, funding. If it comes to capex issues, that's the capital asset, funding and etc. The cost of the capital injection is also very, very important to see how best we frame it up. And then from the findings that we have all observed today or this morning, looks like the SMEs are challenged in retooling and then also funding their export activities, access to consistent raw material and etc. All these are some of the challenges that they face. But then, if we look at it, we ask ourselves, how are we trying to support them? And then from my point, because my assignment on the national role is to go and meet the individual SMEs and then have the dialogue with them, just like our consultants did, is that the issues also at times vary from one SME to the other. But then you have some underlying cross-cutting challenges that they almost find. And then I realized that the findings of the research, highlights about 60% of the challenges that I've also come across, in my industrial life, and then formerly as the Vice President for AGI, responsible for SMEs. These were the key things that we've always been advocating for interventions. But then the question is that as we look at these challenges, we ask ourselves how competitive our SMEs or our entrepreneurs are going to be on the African continental market.
And I'm sure that is what the strategy is supposed to be doing.
Yes. So if you look at, I'll bring you down straight to our national policy framework, and that sort of, which is the main mother document that is guiding us through, which I think I gave a soft copy to Shadrach to share among members who began. So I think we all have copies if we don't have. So we look at some of the thematic areas and the goalposts that we want to achieve. One of the key things is that we need direct intervention, which has been considered in our framework to support the SMEs. So touching on access to funding, at the NCO, what we've been able to do is to bring some of the financial institutions, that is the banks and other finance, companies, together as participating, financial institutions, together with NCO, to support our private sector SME enterprises who wants to really do business on. So, for example, if the company puts in a request to the bank and that sort of thing, we look at an intervention that we can also support them. And then we should also not forget that even companies under the 1D, 1F, and etc. have also almost about 10% waiver in terms of which the government through the ministry is taking care of. So these are the things. But my dear sister, and then ladies and gentlemen, what we need to try and drive down is that access to information is key for our SMEs to be able to know where the opportunities lies. Thank you.
Okay. I will come back to you in relation to the Development Bank and Exim Bank and how we have positioned these two key institutions, since their main mandate is for some of these conversations. How have they been woven into the national strategy to make sure that access to finance, which is one of the key things, is being taking a look at. Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, together with GEPA, I'm sure you can answer these questions. The expectation was that a year and a half on, we should have been having several businesses exporting. You sit at the place of registration and helping the businesses to be able to be compliant. What are some of the key issues that have come up?
Okay, thank you very much. Since 1st January 2021, actually we have been working on it, how best we can support our SMEs to register their products and then their companies under the scheme after. The issue is that first, it's from the Secretariat. You know, there are a lot of things that they have not completed. They normally they have to complete whatever that, like if you look at the rules of origin. Based on the rules of origin, that's what we are going to use to register them. And if we've not finished completing the rules, how are we going to register the companies? As at now, I think they've been able to complete about 88%. So still, we have a gap, but we are started registering them. And the other thing is that we have to sensitize the companies. A lot of things that we have to do. GIZ has supported us for the past 3 months like this. We've gone through our all the 16 regions to sensitize the exporters so that they will be able to take advantage. They will be able to register and after. And because the certificate of origin that we are going to use was not ready. It was, I think, finalized about 3 months ago. So all these things is delaying the process. It's not only like Ghana, we are behind. All of, like the whole country, the whole Africa continent, all of us. So there are a lot of things that we have to do.
So my next question, which probably will bring you in, Joanna, is who is ready? At what stage are they? And about how many companies are we taking a look at? And even in categorizing these companies, who would you call SMEs? Joanna, you'd like to take that, and then he will come back in.
Yes, maybe I can add.
Can you please?
Okay. All that he said, I'll just add a little to it. That is, our companies are being sensitized as time goes on. We've worked closely with the AfCFTA Secretariat, and we've been undertaking needs assessment. Just to bring this in, as a trade promotion organization, we've been ready for the AfCFTA, and as a matter of fact, we are the institution under Ministry of Trade and Industry who is implementing the National Export Development Strategy. This is in line with promoting Ghanaian products in the international market. Our target for this strategy is 25.3 billion by 2029. This is an ambitious target, and the only way we can get through to this is through the AfCFTA agreement, where we can capitalize on the market opportunities within the African continent. So for us, this is very important for us. Now, here is a case that we are looking at companies. Are they ready? What are they looking forward to be able to assess this huge market? Yes, they know the opportunities that exist there, and there are a few challenges. And I think most of them were addressed in the research that we saw. And this is not new to us, like Honorable said. This is not new to us. And we are currently doing needs assessments for companies. We've grouped them. I think from my initial conversation with you, we are looking at 20, first 20, then 100, than 200 going forward. We've listed or been able to identify over 100 companies, but as at now, we've done needs assessment for about 17 companies who are really ready for the market, and their needs goes beyond Ghana Export Promotion Authority. We cannot do it alone. Probably market access, capacity building, and all that, GEPA will be able to do it. But what about if there are needs for electricity, for water, and other cost of operations that we all know? These ones goes beyond that. So we always call for stakeholder involvement in the implementation of the National Export Development Strategy. In the strategy, we have 3 pillars. The first pillar is expanding the supply capacity of companies. The second one is the regulation, that is the institutions that facilitate certification and others to work closely with them to be able to enhance this certification. Like it was mentioned, most companies do not have. So we are working closely with Standards Authority, FDA, and the rest. When you come to our office, just to add to it, to address some of these needs that we are talking about, we have a technology-driven center called the Impact Hub. And at the Impact Hub, we are working with Standards Authority, PPRSD, and FDA. They are situated in our office right now, that if you walk in and you want information from GEPA, they are also available to give you the needed information without you walking over to their offices. So these are some of the things that GEPA is doing to address the challenges that we have identified. Then we talk about the capacity and marketing. That's the third pillar. That's as well, you all know, GEPA, as usual, have been spearheading trade promotion activities for our exporters, our SMEs in the international market. But for the sake of taking advantage in the African market, we are looking at focusing more on the sub-regions so that we can also have our share of the increase we are expecting in trade within African countries.
I'll come back to you because I'm still interested in at what stage are these companies in terms of the export, and I'm sure you will have some answers for that.
Okay, so.
Yes, so as he said,
she was talking about 17 companies.
Assets, okay. When you look at those assets, I think most of them we have inspected their companies and everything is done. We just have to give, even we have approved them. We just have to give them the go ahead. And today, if any company registered, like assets, and then you want to export today, I assure you, you can get the certificate of origin to export today. So that one is not an issue at all.
So what's hindering us?
That is what I think is the market access, and then some of them are not. Most of the time, Ghanaians, if you want to start something, everybody want to wait and see. So that is the issue. So they want to see how best, how it will work. Then they come in.
So at what point will Ghana export? January, December? When?
No,
when we have
exported? We have exported. KEDA Ghana has exported tiles to Cameroon under the scheme. So that one is there.
That's just one company.
We have a few companies like Bob Dog said.
Who's working on it?
We are working on it, and then they will export palm kernel oil to Kenya. There are a few ones that we are working on it. There are a company want to export Shabata to Kenya and Rwanda.
I think one of the key things that we have spoken about, all of us, have been access to information and the fact that these people do not even know what to do. So I'll go to PEF and take a look at the desk that has been created, the AfCFTA desk created with the associations. How are you pushing to make sure that your members really understand and take advantage? Where would you say you are?
Okay, all right. Thank you, Odelia, and then good morning to everyone. So just like you said, information is key when it comes to CFTA, and even not only CFTA, but trade in general. And in terms of dissemination of information, what kind of information are you sending out? It's so very important. We can sensitize a lot of private sector people, but what are we sensitizing them on? Is it on the general framework of the CFTA, or unpacking the CFTA for them to understand what is the opportunity in there, what are the channels for them to actually participate in the CFTA, what institutions locally are there to facilitate some of these interventions. So the decks that we have set up at the Private Enterprise Federation, which we seek to scale up, I know GCCI has set up similar decks, is to try to convince other associations to do similar setups to provide some information. How do I export, especially looking at country level information? So we have Kenya, what are the exportable commodities that Ghana can send to Kenya? How do are we going to be able to, as a country or as private sector, be able to export to these countries? And even looking at internal capacities of some of these businesses, right? We have done a diagnostics and we've realized that a lot of them have inherent challenges within the respective businesses or firms that are making them unable to actually produce quality products, one. Don't forget that this is an international market and standards is very important. Now we have a manufacturing company that manufactures juice, for example. And then per the production procedures, you're supposed to have, let's say, 3 oranges, okay, to produce a pack of juice. Now he does that for the first time, produces a pack of juice, sends to the market, customers are happy. He goes back to the market and says, okay, I'm going to produce another batch of juice. By this time around, his raw material base, there's a problem. He was able to get at least just 2 oranges, right? He says, well, let me put 2 oranges, add some water to it, and then mix it up and send to them. The customer wouldn't know, right? He sends it there, the customer tastes and says, no, there's a difference in product. The taste, the first one that I bought, the second one that I bought, there are differences in taste. Now, the issue of standards is very important, right? Having a procedures manual that you follow as an institution. So as a DEX, these are some of the things that we're trying to educate our businesses to actually understand that, look, it's not just within the local market, right? We're going beyond our local market. How do we actually keep to the standards? How do we keep to make sure that our products that we are sending out there are quality and are able to compete? Because don't forget that there are other products that are coming into the country. And so we have to be very much prepared and make sure that we are able to compete and compete perfectly. So these are some of the things we are doing as a DEX, and we are encouraging other business associations to do the same for our members.
Agribusiness Chamber. Do you have a desk like that at the chamber?
Yes, so we do.
Okay. What sort of education are you giving them? Because people within the agribusiness space, very important, very key. They actually drive activities in this nation, and exporting semi-finished and finished products is critical to us. What sort of education are you giving, and at what level, and who is receiving this education?
Okay, so with regards to the Chamber of Agribusiness, we decided that we shouldn't be too much of in a hurry to start exporting. Not because the opportunities are not available, but because we need to do a lot of background work. For instance, he mentioned that the supplier base is one thing that is very important. When you go to a lot of the retail outlets locally, you get to know that sometimes they find it very difficult to accept local products, mainly because of the fact that they would be available today, tomorrow they are no more available. They may be available today in X standard, the next day you go and it's a different ballgame altogether. So that's just one of the things that we are taking precaution with. So what we've also done is that we've been able to segment our membership. We have the smallholder farmers, who we are encouraging to form a lot more of producer associations and cooperatives. Now, that is something that is currently ongoing. We also have the SMEs, but even with the SMEs, we try to look at it on a value chain basis. because every value chain has its peculiarities. Even though a lot of them would be similar in certain aspects, there are certain aspects of it also that are very, very key. For instance, the standards and requirements for the exportation of, let's say, meat products would vary from the exportation requirements for, let's say, horticultural and other items, you know. So that is how we have worked on it. And so what we do is that we've done a lot of sensitization, even though I would admit that we still have a lot to do, because when you look at the information that is being given out, some of the information, especially to the smallholder farmers, has to actually be translated into local language for them to be able to understand and appreciate what you're communicating to them about. The other thing about it also is that we initially had a challenge looking at the entire, the various protocols, because there's a lot of information to digest. And the question is, are you going to share all that information all at once, or how are you going to be able to do it in such a way that they'll be able to better appreciate it? So what we've done is that we are working on it in phases, so as to enable them to be able to better appreciate what exactly the African Free Continental Trade Agreement is all about. And then also to demystify a lot of the things that they hitherto probably thought were a challenge. There's been a lot of misconception about the AfCFTA. In some quarters, some think AfCFTA is an NGO. Some also think that it's a financial organization coming in to give you money. And as a result of that, it's very important that we're able to put it into context, so as to enable them appreciate it AfCFTA in itself and in its entirety. And those are some of the things that we've done currently. Going forward, there's still a lot of work we have to do. Standardization has been made mention of. With the smallholder farmers, one of the things that we're encouraging is the formation of the producer associations and then cooperatives, mainly because of the scale in which we do the production. Our current production cost is very high, and it even gets higher when you do value addition, because power, recently we had some hikes in the use of the utilities we use. Unfortunately, Galamsey is also affecting us to a large extent, because the water seeps into the soil and it affects us. The use of chemicals as well is also an issue, because we have chemical residues for some of our products, and that is a challenge. A lot of the smallholder farmers don't even understand what exactly how to use the chemicals, and as a result of that, they even dip their fingers into it to test and see the efficacy of Over time, there's been a lot of, for instance, weedicides, and I think the weeds have also grown some kind of resistance, so they try to mix it up. So there's actually a lot of work that we have to do in the background, which we are doing. At the same time, also trying to figure out which of the organizations, there are actually a number of organizations who are ready, who would be in a position to, with a little bit of guidance and support, to be able to go out and do the exports. But we are managing our expectations at the immediate, in the short term as well.
It's obvious that not every business will be able to export. That is acceptable, universally accepted. Who can, so that we concentrate on those ones and speak about them and look at what you're doing to position them for that? When you say SMEs, you're looking at businesses employing 19 people and above. And so who can, and how have we identified these people, and what sort of support are we giving to them to quickly do this? Any of you?
Yes. If you look at, it's not all the product that we produce here that can go.
Yeah. I think she was talking about 17 products.
Not that one is product that has been identified to support. Yes. But if you are here, or if you are SME and you want to produce something, I would advise that maybe you can consult Chamber of Commerce, GRA Customs, Ministry of Trade, NCO, for us to tell you whether your product will qualify under the rule that we have. We have rules of origin that we use to determine whether the product qualify or not. So I know a company who has invested so much and want to take advantage of AfCFTA, but they don't qualify. So right now, they have to even advise them to look at where they source their raw materials. So all these things, I advise that if they want to invest, they should research and know the product that will qualify before they do that. And the other companies too that can call, it's open. When you come and then you want to register, we have electronic registration there and manual. You can go to any of the office, they will help you to fill the form, and within a short time we'll upload your form on the ICOMS, and then we'll register you. And then the committee will meet and then determine whether you qualify or not. And it's not a difficult thing. So people, those who want to take advantage, they should come. And then we are ready to support them to take advantage.
Joanna, I'll come to you just a minute. Joanna, can you share with us these 17 areas of concentration? One of the key things that was also mentioned in the report was issues relating to innovation and providing a differentiation, uniqueness, and I'm sure that falls within your ambit. Exactly how are you helping these businesses to position to be unique in order to keep producing the same things, and what are the items you have identified?
Okay, thank you very much. And just to add on to your earlier question about whether somebody is able to export already or not. When you go to our websites, just to let you know, we have something we call export readiness check.
Can you take the microphone?
Export readiness check, and you'll be able to assess yourself. Aside that, we also encourage youth, we also encourage SMEs to make that effort to export. So we train and we give them the areas where they can export to. We have a list we call the exportable products. When you contact us at our offices, we'll help you. Our sectors are classified into 4. We have the agro-process or agribusiness. We have the handicraft or industrial arts and crafts. We have the semi-process or process that you can always look at. Then the big one we are also looking at now is services. So when you come, we'll guide you as to which areas. We will not put a number as to if you have this number of people or this capacity before you can export. There are people who have little but have the ability to expand. So we will guide you. Just walk to our offices, let us know where you are, the number of people you are working with, even if you are doing it in your house and you have opportunity to expand beyond your room or whatever to process and be able to go through certification and all that, and you have the products, there is opportunity for everyone. So when you go through this, we lead you, and then we move on to Chamber of Commerce, where they will show you the details as to how to qualify.
How decentralized are you? So, because it looks like a lot of our conversation is concentrated in Accra. How decentralized? Where can people find you around?
The good news is that GEPA is found in
Almost
about 10 regions. The districts are handled by our regional offices. So when you go to Upper West, Upper East, the whole, the Volta region, Ashanti region, all the regions, you find our officers in there that you can talk to. If there is any challenge, you can always reach out to us and we will show you where they are located. And with regards to information, we've been going round all the districts. As we speak, they are on the grounds. In Koforidia, in Upper West and all that, sharing all this information. And our website is always full of information on that is trending products, product that market reports, product that has opportunities and all that. Just visit our website and there are a lot of information that you have there. The next question that you asked,
I was
please.
finding out what are the products.
Yes, the priority
17,
products, yes. Just to start, the big one on the list is processed cocoa. You know, when we talk about non-traditional exports, we have, as a country, we have a traditional list. That is the gold, diamond, and all that, timber logs and the rest. But when we talk of non-traditional, they are the sectors I mentioned, like the agro, the craft, and the rest. These are the non-traditional products, but we have prioritized 17 of them. That doesn't mean that is the only product we are pushing under the National Export Development Strategy. We are doing a lot more, but these have been given priority, and they were considered by stakeholders from, I believe most of them are here and aware of this list. But I'll go over it with you. We have the industrial starch, we have sugar, we have processed cocoa, we have cashew, that's processed in shell. Then we have horticultural products, we have oil seeds, we have fish and fish products, we have textile, garments, and apparel, we have natural rubber sheets, we have aluminum products, we have, let me expand it a bit, pharmaceuticals, we have iron and steel, and automobiles and vehicles. You know, Kantanka is seriously producing, so we are targeting that plus the other companies that have set up in Ghana. Then we have the industrial salt and machinery and components. All these are prioritized areas. So the reason for this is that if there is an investor coming into Ghana, these are pointers. That doesn't mean it's the only product. They are pointers, areas that you can look at that have potential to bring us the NTE earnings that we are looking. Already I mentioned we have a target of 25.3 billion by the year 2029. So as of now, we are at 3.3 billion. So we are looking at how much we can add on by 2029, and it will involve everyone here. If we all align with this strategy and we put our programs in line with some of these products and operations that we are doing, we'll be able to achieve this.
I'm interested in the finance conversation before we run.
Yes.
And I asked Doctor at the beginning, when we heard of 1D1F, then EXIM became really, really important. Then now the development bank is also available. How are we weaving the operations of these two institutions in helping with our export strategy, especially from the AfCFTA perspective, with full concentration on SMEs?
Thank you very much. I think one of the key things that we need to understand is that, first of all, every market has the dynamics of the demand and supply. And so, no matter what you do, you must also seek some information on the market to know exactly what that market requires. For Ghana, I think my dear sister also started mentioning the anchor industries that we're trying to promote, pharmaceuticals, etc., blah, 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 just as she mentioned. But then, we all remember the mandate that was given to, that is export, Ghana Exim Bank, which used to be the Ghana, the EDIF, that is the Export Development and Investment, fund. It used to be a fund, which was then, transformed or enlarged by an act to establish them as a bank to deal directly with, export. I remember, and then we all will remember also, there used to be a company called Export Finance Company. Those were specific tools deployed to engage the financial aspects of our export, what we do. But then what we need to understand here is that, no matter what you do in terms of trade, you will need that finance support to enhance your business activity, which now, though we have a lot of other financial institutions, that is the banks, we have Exim Bank, which, like I did mention, everybody doing business wants to look at affordability, access, etc. So the cost of finance, if you're doing, like so export, and then you happen to go to Ghana Exim, that it means that you are looking for a rate which is a bit more accommodative for what you do than going for the ordinary commercial rate.
True.
In that vein, as NCO, that's the National Coordinating Office of AfCFTA, we have these, collaboration with the financial institutions, as we call them, our participating financial institutions, which EXIM is quite a key member of it. And then there are other banks. I'm not here to promote any other bank, but because we are talking about export, that's the reason why I'm mentioning EXIM so much. But then, it depends upon your activity that you want to do. And then, like every financial institution will do, they will rightly assess your capabilities and abilities to meet your export orders. And for example, if you have a firmed order from a company in, let's say, Kenya or Cameroon or Mauritius or any country which is part of the African, continental free trade area, then the financial institution will then have to look at the terms of your arrangement. Then we'll provide a tailor-made, finance to suit whatever you want to do. But then you see, what I will also try to advise the SMEs is that the timing at which we even try to assess the funding, we wait until the order is ready, and then we start scratching our head, where can we get financial support? And then this triggers back to the findings that the research findings gave to us. Bookkeeping, blah, blah, all those indicators that will make the SME prepared to be able to assess, the funding are very vital. How do they keep their books? Do they have the banks to deal with, etc.? All those things must be prepared before. And then, like I always say, you don't have to, you have to be waiting for the train to pass so that you can hop onto the train. But you don't think that, the train will rather wait for you. So let's get our SMEs prepared. And then from the findings of the research of CATS International, I believe that if GIZ will go further and also look at how to support the SMEs in the preparation of them to be credit worthy, then it will make them prepared to be able to assess some of this funding. So that when you have an order from Kenya to export, let's say, Adan beads, which will then qualify under the rules of origin because all the materials in production are from Africa or from Ghana, then it means then it qualifies to be traded under the AfCFTA. So we need to educate them in all this. And then the cost of funding, we know that competitively, our rates, commercial rates, are not very supportive in terms of, international trade and export, because when we looked at the research finding, the cost of power, cost of raw material, consistency of raw material, my colleague, from the PEF was mentioning even availability and consistency of raw material. All these things must be put in place, So when you have an order and then you say you want to export and you need finance, you must make sure that all these things are already before you start even running to some of the financial institutions to assess the fund and then the cost of fund. But I would say that on the market, we can all look at the prevailing rates available. Yeah. But then EXIM's rate, because you are specifically using it for export, I think there is a kind of rate that is more or a bit better than the commercial rates. But however, in assessing it, and you remember I did mention, my dear sister, that the timely access of the funding is quite critical. Okay. If you need to export and meet your export orders within a certain time frame, and then it will have to take about 6 months for the financial institution to process your application, then it means we are laid back. We are laid back. So timely access to finance, the cost of the credit, and then the availability of it are quite important for us to be able to do or participate in the AfCFTA.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have very short time to complete this conversation, but I still have a couple of questions. Services, very important for me. Looks like everything we're speaking about today is about products. I myself, I'm into services. Just saw my sister entering from, she's into customer service. We all know the role that the services sector play even in our national economy. What sort of importance have we put on this in preparing people within the services sector to also export their services? I remember I interviewed the Vice Chancellor of one of the Rwandan universities, and he said, because we know we don't have land, we have no business exporting anything aside services. And so for Rwanda, their main concentration will be in the area of services. What are the concentrations? If somebody is even wanting to export services, what should they do? What sort of preparation should they be putting in place? Look, I'm going to ask the question from him first. How have they positioned people within the services sector under PAF? And then we will come to you in relation to what you are doing at GEPA.
Okay, thank you. So I'm not sure, but I think the trading has been divided into two different categories, the goods part of it and then the services. Yeah. So what the focus now is on the goods. Then there's another phase that would focus on the services. But just like you said, we would have to go ahead to start sensitizing our people, especially looking at the financial institutions, providing credit and all that. Those are services that they can provide within the CFTA framework. We've had initial discussions with them. We've also had discussions with some universities to see how can they actually be able to market the universities to bring in, students to actually participate in educational programs and all that. These are our services. So even though it is not ready yet, we have gone ahead to say, let's start having discussions to position yourselves, to be able to take advantage. Learning from what the goods sector is doing, we can actually be able to do it better when it comes to services. So that's what we have been doing as PEF, and then with our member association that provide some services, like the banks, the schools, and others.
Thank you very much. Joanna.
Thank you very much. And with GEPA, services has been one of the focus areas that we have been championing lately. And as I speak with you, the services team are in Nigeria, specifically Abuja, undertaking a student recruitment drive with the universities from Ghana. And this has been something we've been doing over and over again. Some of the areas that we look at GEPA from the services side is medical tourism. We know at Kolebu, the cardio section and the plastic surgery and all that, a lot of people come to Ghana to assess these services, whilst these doctors also go out there to render some of their services and brings in that foreign exchange that the country needs so much. We also look at the BPOs, and they are all part of the people we are working with currently. We have a database, and we've put down programs that they are going to participate in the sub-region to be able to explore services available that they can bring in the needed earning. If you heard of our last program, I think last year, Infotech, we brought in a lot of tech companies to come and showcase what they have as we prepare ourselves for this African Continental Free Trade Area. And so the next exhibition of technical services needed, that you see Ghanaian delegation presenting not less than maybe 20 companies in these exhibitions out there, all in the quest to promote our tech services, our medical facilities here, and also our universities. Thank you very much.
Yeah. You want to add anything from the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce? Okay.
Let me just. A lot of the discussion usually doesn't involve logistics, which is what will actually ensure that whatever we're doing, everything, in whatever shape or form it is, actually happens. And I think Ghana is actually well positioned to be able to export some of those services. Because when you leave a crowd, for instance, we have the haulers, those who do the haulage. We have, for instance, a couple of days ago, I read in the news that McDan had actually started with, had an MOU signed with the Secretariat to be able to, provide short sea services, kind of a trotro along the coast to ensure that we can get a lot of
Our products out there.
products out there. So I think logistics services is one of the very, very key. Unfortunately, we seldom talk about it. So I just wanted to.
Thank you for the addition. So I open the floor for anyone. Yeah, I'll come back to you. I open the floor for anyone with a quick question or contribution. You've got to keep it very short because we have just about 5 more minutes to go. Yes, please go ahead. Can you pass over a microphone to him?
I have a strong voice, but for the benefit of the audiences. So my name is Ziad Hamwi, and I'm the National President of Borderless, and I'll be very quick. It's 2 interrelated questions. The first one has to do with a project which a couple of years ago, the Chamber of Commerce were talking about, and it's called the Business Pulse. And I was wondering whether somehow this today is a continuity of the work that was started at the time, which is similar to something else that AGI is also doing. And the reason I'm asking this question is because of the need to integrate some of the many initiatives which duplicate and overlap. I think maybe it's the logistician in me which says that we have to integrate and eliminate the unnecessary hard work in order to prevent overlap. And the last question has to do with the public-private partnership on some of these issues. I think we mostly agree on the fact that the agencies are doing good work with the dissemination of the policies, directives later on downstream. Where my major concern has to do with upstream, when the policy shaping is taking place and the decision making, where we need to have more prior consultation between the representatives of private sector and public sector. Now, I think the AfTA NCO is one of the few examples where there is adequate, I think, public-private participation in the shaping of the policy work which we have done. 2 years ago, there was the representative of so many associations, private sector representatives, which is a very commendable effort. But that is still on national level. We need to get this kind of participation on a regional level, on a continental level. I think we need to follow the lead of the NCO, but I think there's a lot of work in order to make sure that private and public collaboration prior to the policy setting agenda takes place. And that is where we are ready to put our hands together to work to the benefit of our exporters and also to the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And this then pushes me to make this quick announcement that our second dialogue will be done on Wednesday, the 2nd of November. So you can pen it down in your diaries, the same place, and making AfCFTA work for Ghanaian women businesses. And then the third dialogue will be on Wednesday, 23rd of November, same place, and the theme will be financing AfCFTA trading, how the banks finance SME trading. And so this is way of announcement. One last question. Yes, and it should be a woman.
Not necessarily a question. My name is Grace.
Yes, hi, Grace.
Head of Marketing, GNCCI. We are heavily represented, so I won't say much is being said. But I have become an informal ambassador for the Development Bank because we've had some engagement with them, and I want to address the question you asked about what's the role of the Exim Bank and the Development Bank. And the little or what the Chamber has done with Development Bank shows that they want to do something different. They are not just interested in when you are even ready to export and then you come to them and look for, of course, going through their participating banks or financial institutions. But what they are doing is that they have a global platform where SMEs are onboarded, and so far with the Development Bank and GNCCI partnership, we have trained about 500 SMEs within the southern sector to get them to be credit worthy, to de-risk them and help them get access to their long-term finance, which has quite reasonable rates for SMEs in particular to be able to upscale and grow. So on that of the development bank, if you are listening and you are an SME from the agri sector, the manufacturing sector and high value service sector, you have to look for the GNCCI, because even though we finished the southern sector, we are still onboarding those who are interested, and then the program is such that they are going to be handheld, help to mostly the risk, and then they will be able to assess the long-term loans. Because if we are talking about the SMEs being able to take advantage of AfCFTA, finance, as we all agree, is a key component. And I hope Development Bank doesn't disappoint me, but I want to say that with the little we have engaged them on and seen, they want to do something different, and they are not those who just want to sit and wait for the businesses to qualify, but they want to be part of the process of getting them qualified to be able to grow. I also just want to say that the collaboration between the private sector and the public sector in making sure that AfCFTA works, we've talked about the benefits a lot. I think that a larger percentage of those concerned, especially in the private sector, have heard the benefit of AfCFTA, at least in the abstract form. But what we need to do, which Mr. Intiri talked about, is to zero in on the rules of origin, break them down, so that companies who want to take advantage will now focus on the rules and know how to even put together their product. The components of the raw materials and all that sourcing will help them, so that they won't be taken by surprise, like Mr. Intiri said, of a company. So I want to suggest that all the stakeholders, let's now begin to, even if it is 80-something% complete, the ones that are complete, the rules of origin, let's begin to focus on the rules and educate the private sector or the SMEs on the rules, because the SMEs don't have money to spare. So if they are investing, then they must know where to invest. I mean, not to try and later be told that because of the source of your raw material, you don't qualify. So please, let's focus on that. And all our development partners, all the stakeholders, when we come to you, let's continue to partner to focus on this area. That's my suggestion now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll give you the last opportunity, and then we will go off air, and then we will come in here to continue the discussion. So let's quickly hear your contribution, and then we will say bye-bye to our live audiences and come back in here.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Thekla. I'm a legal practitioner, and I'm super excited about AfCFTA because we know it has great potentials. And I'm happy you started the conversation on services, because we provide services, and the great potentials we see under AfCFTA for export of services. When you go to Nigeria, one of the things they always say is that Ghanaian teachers are the best. Those times when they used to teach us, we had good students. So imagine having our teachers go to Nigeria under AfCFTA, and so we need to get the services also on board as soon as possible. But one problem we look at, especially bringing people into Ghana, is our minimum capital requirement. And we have consultants, we have individuals who want to come into Ghana because AfCFTA is underway. They want to come and invest, they want to come and start business. But once they are foreigners, they would need to bring in minimum capital, 200 million United Nations dollars, right? USD, United States dollars, exactly, or 500,000 United States dollars, or 1 million if they want to trade in goods and services. And that has been a hint. I mean, this year, if anyone knows me already, I've been advocating for AfCFTA, and we've had a lot of foreigners calling in to ask how they can invest. But once we get to the minimum capital, they disappear because they don't have it. And I think is one thing we should be looking at the policy side. Then to CAT and GIZ, I've also been following your activities. We appreciate it very much. But one thing I think that we should also be talking about or encouraging the SMEs is skill set for scaling up. Because when the market is open, so we foresee globalization, we foresee industrialization, and we need people who know how to manage businesses at that level. We need people who understand how operations of such large businesses should and are conducted. Mostly in Ghana, SMEs are, should I say, individually owned. Even when they are registered as limited liability companies, they are operated as sole proprietorship. And when you are going to scale up and you're going to go global, these are going to be hindrances. There are some policies, there are some corporate governance issues that would definitely come up. Then you also have issues like finance, which we've talked about, and there are so many alternatives of raising funds for projects outside the traditional banks. We have joint ventures, we have franchising, we have partnerships, and these are things you don't see a lot within the SMEs, and there are opportunities they can pick up to expand. So these are my contributions.
Thank you, our legal brain. Thank you for adding these few perspectives. Thank you very much for watching our live audiences. We had on the panel Dr. Atto Panford, who is the Senior Advisor at the National AfCFTA Coordinating Office. We also had Charles Arthur Entry, Head of Exports at the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you for coming. We also were joined in by Nelly Joanna Spio Abedu, who is also the Principal Export Development Officer, Ghana Export Promotion Authority. Thank you for coming. Mention that your name yourself. Please give him his microphone. Please give him the microphone. I do not want to butcher your name.
All right, that's okay. My name is Nlalaban Ujanji.
Okay, Nalaban Ujanji. He's the Director Food and Agric and AfCFTA, the focal person with the Ghana Chamber of Agribusiness. And we have Wisdom Adongo, Senior